It's a nice sculpture. This whole area right here is a tribute to the Pasadena Playhouse. You know that building right there? There's a nice little walkway, a little fountain over there, kind of like a little respite. This is like the quiet, happening place. Tiny. And a fitness camp over here to attend after you get your hamburgers. Mizo Robotics over there. And the beautiful Green Street. Okay, here's another one. 1929 to 1936. Don Lee Cadillac LaSalle. Cadillac LaSalle still exists, I believe. It's a small chain of dealerships. I remember that as I was younger, but I did not know that LaSalle Cadillacs, Don Lee more exclusively started here. 1929, 1936. I love this building exclusively because of the inside garage. It's got all the rafters and everything, and I think I've said this before. I can only imagine that it probably sometime maybe also had hydraulic lifts to service the cars or whatever. Certainly looks to be warehousey enough that it had car parts and probably light service. And this area right here would have been the beautiful, very, very beautiful showroom. So you can only imagine at its time. Buildings just architecture. Look at that. Look how big it is. It's huge in there. Businesses, corporations, especially banks, financial institutions, and insurance companies. Well, one and the same, correct? Look at that. Yeah, I'd see if I could have this rezoned, turn this into a home, and I'd definitely keep the somewhat greenhouse over there. And it's got these old fashioned, probably like in the Midwest or in the East Coast, these old fashioned, I call them dolphins, bumpers or whatever, and they usually always had like the name of such and such forge company or whatever. Manhole covers, even street covers like that, usually bear the name of the forge company, which we used to have a lot of forge companies all over Los Angeles. Okay, I was able to kind of answer my own question of where exactly was Woolworths and the Broadway located, and the Broadway Plaza. I thought this place was called the Broadway Plaza because the buildings, the back of the Playhouse, sorry about the glare, bears a big resemblance, sorry, I'm trying to get good light, of what was once the former the Broadway store here, which architecturally also had the similar type of the one that they had like over in the Fairfax or the Wilshire district on Wilshire Boulevard. That is now the Movie Academy Museum. And then I was looking at what beared a big resemblance to the Pacific Asian Museum, and I'm thinking, okay, it kind of looks like that building. That means they would have had to have hydro lifted it up and moved the Asia building. It's like I said, when you look back at history, at all the photographs and everything, you're amazed of what used to actually exist before what is more commonly known to you for the last several years. Even if you grew up at a later time, after what was once, oh my God, I sound like Kamala Harris, burdened by once was. Iran is unburdened now by what was once. There used to be a Broadway over there, and then right next to the Broadway definitely was a former Woolworths, the what looks to be like the early Linden Optometry. And, well, let's go look. Let's look at the people over at Earth Cafe. Here's another one. If you can barely see on the top of the roof line, you can see the bottom feet of the former two antenna towers, both on this side and over there. As I said, many of our buildings all over used to have antenna towers. There's the building right there, 1914 for the Star News. Okay, here's another one. Wow, just blows my mind. 1929. I know time stands still for no man and progress always prevails, etc., etc. But that view is so much better. It's beautiful. Instead, we gotta give way to what looks to be those columns. Probably, I would say, a bank. A lot of these photos, because it has columns. Columns were prevalent in a lot of architecture. And so it kind of looks like one that I saw previously or something that I saw partially of. So anyway, City Hall in the background right there. Big old office building now to the left. And then the Montana to the right. $4 million properties. 1929, please. She's laying low, baby. Okay. All trees and everything else barren. That's about the best. This landscape didn't, exist back then. But anyway, this is 1925, thereabouts. Look at that. Wow, San Fernando. Here's another good one I found. Over here to the right, you see that little building with the protruding marquee? I'll get to that in a bit. But look at that. That used to be Robinson's. This is circa 1940, 40s to 50s-ish. I couldn't find an exact date. But, yeah. Now, if you will, to the subject, as early as 1900s, actually before 18, God, I can't remember, but we had the red cars over here. And back then, things were still a little bit more, different, I guess. Yeah, no, there were a lot more periods of time where snow fell. Here in Pasadena, a lot more than, well, there was only one time, but it was kind of like frost and it just like evaporated within like hours, but it was pretty cool. But no, there's a lot of old photos as I'm going back into time here in Pasadena. Very, very fascinating archival photos and everything, especially Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks and Colorado. Not so much as Lake in Colorado, but Fair Oaks and Colorado was definitely like the center point of Pasadena for transportation and integration for other municipal or other train lines. We used to have the red car coming through here. There were cables. That was another thing that was so important about having tall, sturdy brick buildings, is for the fact that what you don't see, example as this, but what you don't see like in movies and history books and stuff like that, where you see streetcars and everything, you don't really get a sense or get to see all the wires, all the anchors that were anchored into the brick buildings to support the wires, the electrical wires above. And when you see some of the better photos of like, there's one I'm going to try and post, you see the spider. It's just like a spider web of a line turning from south going up north and traveling east, turning east. And it's really cool, but yeah, fascinating. We never really get to see that in movies and TVs and such like that because, well, I guess maybe we're led to believe that the electricity is solely being supplied from the ground up, that's only half of the source. Go across the street in a bit to get a better shot, but I want to show you the picture that I was showing you where Robinson's was over to the forward over here, where you see the big scroll. It says Robinson's. It was a white building, and that still remains. The conditions when Target got this is that they said that they were going to keep all of that like trellis awning work or whatever, because that was part of the architecture. That was part of the whole Art Deco scene, so they kept that. And of course, the outside of the building and everything is still pretty much the same with modifications. But moreover, right here, I always thought there was something very special about this building right here and this archway. I'm like, God, it looks almost like something where a lot of people would gather. And yeah, 1914. This was built in 1914. This is the former Los Angeles State Theater, believe it or not, split into two entities. So this was opened up firstly as the Florence Theater, 1918, March 28th, 1918. And then later to become the Los Angeles State Theater. And of course, over time, as so many of buildings, not just here in California and Los Angeles, but wherever you go through the country, they get repurposed and everything. I always thought that this was something special. I mean, I do like the fact that it looks like maybe there's businesses or residentials on either side, and then the very adorning work all over the archway and everything. It just kept screaming at me. As so many of the buildings here and properties in Pasadena and even in LA, and I always try to reconfigure, like, okay, what was over here, and what was over here on Broadway, and what was over here. This was something else, and I remember as a kid. But yeah, look at that. Actually, no, I mean, so this was one big theater. So you got one business over here, you got another business over here, and you got another little business over here, two little businesses, and then you got the fourth business over here, Lee's. And then possibly residential's upstairs, or if not, business offices. And then, never mind, being a theater, I don't remember what the capacity is. I will try to put down the information for this particular one, because it's right here, right across from the former Robinsons. Another historic building. Pretty doggone cool. Oh, wait till we get up over here by Oak Knoll. Now keep in mind, as I said, nothing but cable cars running up and down all over Pasadena. Here we go. Do you recognize this little intersection? Can you tell by the noise behind me? You can see a little more that big, tall, like 3-story building on the corner. That is the Star News. 1940s, late 40s-ish. Now, from the other photo, you could see what used to be the original part. That building right there was already in the shot, sans the tree, because you would be able to see the little archway over there. But this part of the Presbyterian church definitely would have, it looked a little bit more of stone on the exterior design. And sometime, of course, it was later probably taken down for whatever reasons, and then put up with this. I do like this spire, this bell tower, though. Okay, here's one last shot. You can see to the left, definitely the post office is as is. Off to the right, kind of validifies the other shot that I had done, I think in the last video, which is just to the right. It looked like a theater or something else with an archway, very narrow, tall buildings. And there were columns that was just in that shot. So you can see off to the right corner, looks to what may have appeared to be a bank institution. 1940s. Okay. One more. It's quiet this morning. It's like 9:30 Sunday morning. It's beautiful out. It was actually, last night wasn't so bad. I slept with my window cracked. Had a nice little breeze. The wind was blowing all night. Nothing really too fierce. Nothing to be concerned about, but always in the watch whenever we, of course, are in summertime and any kind of wind blows for anything. There is always a concern for alarm or watch, but even right now there's a very slight breeze. Feels good, quite comfortable. Okay, this is circa 1930s from this shot. There is a full color photo, looks like to be a postcard, an old postcard of this same position but probably, I don't know, maybe 30s. But anyway, this is late 1930s, not too far, maybe 1939. I believe the auditorium opened in 1930, 32, something like that. But as you can see, this probably behind us at the Paseo was probably like I don't know, maybe a park or whatever. Again, one said, each and every time, you know, so much has been given away just to build something that's really doesn't seem to have that much intrinsic value. So I don't know. It's beautiful though.